All right, this might sound a little bit crazy, but I want you to hear me out for a second, Steve.
All right.
Is it just me, or is the notion of having a baby actually the greatest marketing scheme ever made? Okay? Think about it.
How so?
Because it's like, okay, I want one of these baby things. Well, you get to have sex, and to have if you're a guy, you get to have an orgasm to have one. It's like the best thing you can do.
That's true.
It's the greatest thing of all. And then it makes a baby. Isn't it amazing? You're like, yeah, sign me up, dude. It starts with fucking, and then I get the baby. This is awesome.
Yeah.
And then you start reading that fine print.
Right.
And you don't read the asterisk that says, all options extra on baby. Those things don't come preloaded with anything. All the extras, you've got to pay for them. You've got to install them. You got to teach these babies everything.
You even have to write the software. Like you got to teach them how to understand the words you're saying.
Yeah, it's like it's even more than just installing. You've got to write the software and everything right there.
Yeah.
Huh? No
Crazy.
Good, man. That's how they get you. Ahoy, Dad and lovely listeners, and welcome to the brand newest installment of your favorite horror movie podcast in this multiverse and beyond. Why, It's once again Dead and Lovely here with the host with the most. It's me, your good buddy, Uncle Ben.
And me, your bad buddy, Hollywood Steve.
Ooh.
Hey, I got a slingshot. Let's go
bad.
break some windows.
Oh my God, are you going around the neighborhood giving out arm burns and stuff?
Oh yeah, let's go find some kid to pick on.
Knock some books out of his hands and stuff, right?
Yeah, let's find a kid who's less fortunate than us and push him down. It'll make us feel better.
Yeah, exactly. That's how this works, right? And we are, of course, here today to be talking about Death Becomes Her. And if you just want to get right on to the movie review portion of the show, well, there's a timestamp in the podcast description. Because we're going to be doing some hanging and catching up beforehand because it's been a week and a half since we did a podcast.
That's true.
So we need to chat it up and just see how each other's doing and see what we've been watching and stuff. Steve, have you been maybe watching a good flick this week?
I've been watching flicks for sure. I finished the MCU chronological order viewing.
Wow. Okay.
Spider-Man: Far From Home, which absolutely great. Apparently the first time I watched it did not watch the after credit scene, so I've been speculating like a dumbass something that was already confirmed. So
you were tossing me all these suggestions and like, I think that this could be going on, and like, I didn't want to break it to you.
Yeah, that
I was like,
already,
that's confirmed.
Yeah. So anyway, so great. I then decided I was going to watch the X-Men movies in chronological order, and do you see my folly already, Ben?
Yes, because you decided to watch the X-Men movies.
Right.
Most of them are very bad.
And then
very
I threw in chronological order, and there is no chronological order of the X-Men, because it is actually, if you include Deadpool, at least 4 chronologies that all share one thing, and that is Wolverine.
Yeah, it's kind of it, huh?
He's involved in all 3 series in some way. So
wow,
it doesn't work though. But while watching it, all I could think of was how could you edit this to make it work? And you could. God. Yeah, you could. It's possible. I think you could edit it to make it work. It would take some leaps by the viewer. They have to understand, actors change, etc. But it mostly, if you cut out some bits and almost all of X-Men Origins Wolverine, you can kind of make it work. But X-Men Origins Wolverine is terrible.
It's terrible. That's a fucking awful
terrible
movie, man.
It's the 3rd movie you watch in the chronological order, so you get to get it out of the way early.
Yeah, at least there's that, man. Well, let me ask you a few questions about that. So, first of all, is X2 still good? Because I remember that one being
X2 is still
good.
X2 is still good. Yep.
Okay, so that's good to know.
It's great. I still enjoy it. I think it's still a really good X-Men movie. X3, The Last Stand, is so much worse than I remember, and I already hated it. Like every line in the movie, not every line, but the majority of the lines in the movie are definitely placeholder lines for, we'll have them say something like this.
It's like watching Twilight or something.
And then they just say the exact, like the subtext is the text constantly.
That's good, right?
No,
so it makes a good movie.
It's terrible.
Oh.
It's terrible. It's like they don't even give us a second to think like, oh, what is he feeling? It's like, he's feeling this right now. It's like, oh, okay.
Because he's telling you about it.
Yeah. These are the feelings that are being had currently. These are the implications of this.
It doesn't have like a super half-ass like Dark Phoenix kind of in a nutshell in it too.
Yeah, there are now 2 super half-ass Dark Phoenix movies because I watched Dark Phoenix and
I was gonna ask, dude. I keep seeing it on the streaming services, and I'm like, I want to watch this, but I really don't want to watch this because I've heard it's bad.
It's not as bad as you might be expecting, but it's also just boring.
That's not good.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
real boring. Also, a couple, like, if you're remembering that this is supposed to be the same chronology, at the very least, like in some way similar chronology, there are 2 people who die in Dark Phoenix that shouldn't be dead if it's the same chronology. But that is also kind of explained by Days of Future Past, where basically they prevent Mystique from killing Richard Nixon, and instead Magneto attempts to kill him.
That's right.
Yeah, so maybe any events that happen after that are a completely separate chronology that is not related to the original X-Men trilogy.
Well, give me a best and worst of that entire run.
Okay, so I've gotten through X-Men: The Last Stand, so I watched all all 4 of the like newer ones and the 3 old ones. Best, I would say, is X2 for sure.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's the best of those movies, though Days of Future Past, I think, is still really good and interesting and fun to watch. X-Men Origins Wolverine's the worst. X-Men Last Stand is right there. And X-Men First Class is accepting the stuff with Magneto, Xavier, and Mystique is mostly terrible. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
Damn, dude. Yeah, there's some good casting in there.
Yeah, there's some good bits to it, but the movie overall is just like, not worth a watch, really.
Wow, man.
Yeah. So I don't recommend it, though.
Overall, not something you recommend anybody try out.
Though I am about to get into a good run, though, because the next ones are The Wolverine, which is pretty good, and then Deadpool, Deadpool 2, and Logan. So,
Logan's awesome.
Yeah,
man.
so I'm not too bummed about the next 4 movies.
Right on, man. We've also been continuing our Marvel journey as well. We watched...
Yeah, where are you guys at?
Dude, we watched Spider-Man Homecoming the other day.
Mm-hmm.
God,
Awesome.
it's good, man.
Still great.
I think I hadn't seen it since theaters, and I seriously think it's probably in my top 3 Marvel movies, period. I really...
that makes sense.
Really love that movie. I think that it's fantastic and hilarious in all the right ways, but also serious in the right ways.
Yeah.
And having Batman, also known as Birdman, as the Vulture Man. God damn, what great casting, man. So good.
Yeah,
so I moved down and watched
so
Doctor
good in
Strange again the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Which is still really good, man.
Still enjoyable. I still love the visuals of it. It just...
I was going to say, visually, great. It's just amazing, man. And Tilda Swinton, come on.
Yeah, she's awesome.
So that one was a really fun watch. So that's about where we're at right now on those. But in the meantime, I've also had a little bit of extra time to watch a couple of horror flicks and stuff this week. Including Tenebrae by Dario Argento. Man, it's not that great, honestly. It's one of those that I'd heard a lot about as one of those, like, legendary Argento flicks that everybody should watch. A lot of it's just kind of like...
Yeah,
it's like, it's people acting really weird and some really bright colors and stuff. There's nothing, like, supernatural about it. It, of course, has a totally off-the-wall, Goblin soundtrack in there. And it does have a kill towards the end of the movie that is utterly spectacular. It's got like one of the best axe kills I've ever seen. And if you're listening to this and you've seen that movie, you know the one I'm talking about, because it is just incredibly gratuitous and out of nowhere. That's the best part of the movie, honestly.
What would you rate it 1 to 5 pizza slices?
You know, it's going to be... Is that a New York slice, or is that like, like Little Caesar slice?
We're talking a New York slice.
New York slice?
Yeah.
Ooh. 5 New York slices is a lot. I'm going to say this is probably 1 and a folded over slice.
Oh, okay.
Still pretty substantial, honestly.
Yeah.
More pizza than you need.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it was okay, man. I also watched Satanic Panic.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's one night that I was just kind of working out, and I was like, I need something mindless to put on while I work this here elliptical machine, get my legs moving elliptically like.
Oh, man, I remember that 90s rapper, Elliptical.
Yeah, that was him, right?
Yeah.
I wanted something kind of mindless to put on, so I found that on Shudder, and man, there's parts of the movie that are kind of fun in that same way that like The Babysitter is fun, where it's like, this is a newer movie that's not taking itself
too
super seriously. Yeah. And man, the ending is just horrible. The ending completely shits the bed. Like for a lot of the movie, I'd been watching it going like, wow, they really did a good job of doing a lot on a low budget.
Yeah. And
like hiding their effects and, making me ignore the fact that this is a cheap movie. Then it gets to the end and it's like, oh yeah, never mind.
Huh.
Ending of it's just fucking awful.
Wow, that
so
sucks.
Yeah, don't really recommend that one. I've been watching Knight Riders.
Oh.
The George Romero flick with the knights on motorcycles.
Yeah.
Man, that is a movie.
It is. That's true.
I say I've been watching it because like the past week I've been doing, 45 minutes to an hour a day on the elliptical machine, just putting on a movie and stuff. I've done that a couple times this week, and I still have half an hour left of the movie.
Wow.
It's so long. It's like a 2 hour and 40-minute long movie, dude.
Wow.
Yeah. About guys jousting on motorcycles, taking it really seriously. Like, really, really seriously.
I'm gonna fucking joust you, bro.
Yeah. It's got Tom Savini in it just being a complete fucking hunk the whole movie, of course.
Of course, yeah.
He knows no other way.
That's true.
That's just been a fun, silly, very, very stupid watch. We also watched Guns Akimbo.
Oh, okay, with Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a cracked out, fun time, brainless action comic book video game movie right there. Have you seen this?
That sounds awesome. I haven't, but I've heard good things. But what you just said sounds like exactly something I want to watch.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, man. I mean, the basic premise is like there's kind of an app for this this thing where they pit vicious killers and stuff against each other, and people bet on it and watch it like it's entertainment and stuff like this.
Huh. Okay.
And just like how this would go in real life, it's hilarious because, you've got these, like, trained killers, like, fighting each other to the death on this app, and you have, like, slob nerds at home being like, oh, he should have done this instead, blah, blah, blah.
Awesome.
It's really perfectly done in that regard.
Okay.
It's a blast, and it's also cool, too, because we get old, what's her name, from Ready or Not?
Samara Weaving?
Samara Weaving in it, yeah. And she
really?
is...
I love her.
Eyebrowless, stone cold, scuzzy ass cokehead killer in the movie.
Awesome. That sounds great.
Yeah, and you can tell she has a blast being that character.
Good.
I get the impression with her that like she just really loves being in these movies where she gets to be fucking disgusting and be in really gross, gory scenarios, and I think that makes her even cooler.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That definitely adds +1 to everything she's in. That she's just willing
her stats
to
are getting
get
maxed
gross. Out. Yeah, she's awesome.
So that was a really fun watch. Again, it's just mindless action, gun porn kind of stuff. But dude, every now and then you want that. I know I want that.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that sounds right up my alley. So I'm gonna have to check that out for sure.
And our most recent documonday that we had, we watched Hail Satan? ?
Oh, okay. I've heard good things.
It was good. Mm-hmm. Like, it really starts off in a place where, like, it is very, like, silly, the way that these Satanists have kind of put their group together and the way they present themselves and stuff.
Sure.
But that kind of lures you in enough to sort of, like, take this with, I think, enough seriousness to be like, oh, actually, it is really unfair that they get to put, the Ten Commandments out front without representing any other religion, which is where the documentary eventually goes. It's a good watch, man. Like, just a fun, entertaining thing. It doesn't get, super, super deep or anything like that, but it was a good watch.
Yeah. No, I'm with them. Hail Satan. Way to go, those people. They're awesome. They're constantly fighting for our religious freedoms. So even if you grew up super Christian and it sounds crazy to support the Church of Satan, you should support them for sure.
Yeah,
because they're doing good shit.
If you claim to be an American, you should.
Yeah, because they're definitely fighting for religious freedom constantly.
Yeah, and I'm just saying. I mean, name the church that doesn't have billions of dollars worth of child sexual assault allegations going against them. Just name the one. Oh, yes, the Church of Satan.
The Church of Satan. Yeah.
Yeah. Just saying.
Yeah, they're a good organization, and I'm glad they're out there doing what they're doing.
Doing what they're doing.
Ben, guess what I went and did?
What'd you did, Steve?
I went and got a picture of my dog tattooed on me.
Oh, you got goddamn old tattoos, huh?
Yeah, my dog on my dang arm.
Now that is a country strong move right there.
Hell yeah. Yeah, so this Emily and I wanted to do something to celebrate our anniversary because we didn't get to go anywhere and do anything. And so we finally decided we're going to get the same tattoo, and then we tried to set up an appointment with our guy who I went to high school with, who runs Apothic Tattoo in Morristown. Go there. He's awesome. Nathan Hill. They also have my friend Monty, our friend Monty.
Mean Monty.
Yeah. Also a great tattoo artist. So, anyway, we tried to schedule with him, and he was booked all the way up until August. So, I was able to get in to get the tattoo. She's going to get in December after the semester's over. So, we're going to have similar tattoos of our dog for our
awesome
10th anniversary.
Aw. And you showed me the picture of it, and it's the picture of your dog, and it is very, very naughtily urinating on the Chevrolet emblem, right?
Yeah, I wanted something meaningful to me and something that really, said something about our relationship, and it really hinges on our mutual hatred of Chevrolet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good move. It means something. Every tattoo should really mean something to you.
Yeah, I thought so. Anyway, but yeah, no, this was something, of course, that in the middle of a pandemic might sound a little crazy, especially for somebody who hasn't done anything throughout the pandemic but sit home. But Nathan at Apothic Tattoo takes this very seriously. You only get in the tattoo parlor if you have an appointment. He has a laser temperature reader. He sprays you with some hand sanitizer, sprays your hands. Everybody's wearing masks. I would say, if you're looking for a tattoo in this area, Apothic Tattoo, being very safe about it.
Hell yeah. That's good to hear, man, because a lot of people aren't. So it's a good thing that they're buckling down and making the right moves, right?
I wasn't too worried with Nathan, and then when I got there and he immediately took my temperature, I was like, yes. This is the shit I'm here for. Yeah.
This is what I signed up for. Yeah. That's awesome. And the tattoo looks freaking awesome. You got to be sure to put up pictures of that on the Instagram.
Yeah, I will.
And stuff,
I'm waiting for it
badass.
to heal. It's peeling right now, so not
right
as
on.
appealing.
Oh, who did the design itself?
Nathan. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, Nathan's great.
I'd love to see what he could do with a Bart Simpson.
Yeah. Hopefully like a Bart Simpson saying something about the war in Iraq.
Yeah. He'd be saying peace in the Middle East and probably shooting the bird or something, I think.
Eat my shorts, Hussein.
That sounds pretty appropriate, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
That's definitely something I think I've seen on some T-shirts at the flea market in 1996.
For sure.
That's badass, man. Well, congrats on your new ank. You got all anked up.
I'm all anked up like an octopus.
Anked-offed. That's you, huh? That is you, man. You know, Steve, I just find that before I can continue going with the show here, I've got kind of a problem I need to address, and it is the lack of moisture on my palate. It is just bone dry. It's like a desert in here. What do you think we can do about that?
Ooh. I bet if we were to reach for a tasty beverage, perhaps a beer.
A beer?
A beer.
Lord have mercy.
Lord have mercy, beer.
It just so happens I have one here within the reach of my hand.
I do too.
You?
I hope it's the same beer that you got.
It'd be pretty cool if it was. What do you got?
Because I got this Ghost Town Brewing Apostasy that is 100% Citra hops.
I don't know how this happened, but I actually have the exact same beer sitting with me right here. It's meant to be, dude. It's fate.
It is.
God is good. God is good. Let's see what this thing looks like. I'm pouring it out, and it looks a lot like beer.
It sure looks juicy. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's a beer-looking beer. It's mine's like somewhat clear. It's not a super hazy kind of deal, but it's not crazy clear either.
No.
Kind of middle of the road. Looks like my pee in the morning.
It smells a little citrusy. A
Ooh,
little citra-y.
doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with that. Yeah, that thing smells real nice at me right here.
Oh, man.
I can't wait to get a tug on that. What's that do to you?
It's a little sweet, but not like
Ooh,
overly powering. It's more citrusy, like juicy, I would say.
yeah. But it's got some funk on the back end too.
Yeah, a little grapefruity maybe.
Yeah.
Grapefruity, yeah.
It's kind of odd to find one that is this kind of like sort of sweet up front and that funky at the end.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the seesaw is going both ways, real hard like.
Oh my God, you know what this is? This is like opposite juicy fruit. You know how when you chew juicy fruit, it has a flavor for like a second? This has like max flavor for like max time. It like just sticks in your palate.
It's a palate cutter. I mean, I just had a sip, and that's probably been a good 15 seconds ago, and I can still very clearly taste all of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice. That'll get my mane and tail nice and shiny, I bet you.
Good stuff, man.
Put the pep in my step.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Steve, the subject of our show today is, of course, Death Becomes Here. Right?
What language is that?
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And this is a movie that came out in
1992.
Right? Yeah, that's what I said. I don't know why you feel the need to repeat everything I say, but yes, 1992, as I said. And this is a movie that we are fixing to get ourselves a big-time Hollywood remake of, right?
Well, there are rumors of it, and there's supposedly a supposed casting list that came out. Well,
yeah, I saw this the other day, and I got kind of excited because I was like, I can actually back almost everybody here for the recast, but then you told me just a second ago that that's just been a rumor.
Yeah, the cast is just a rumor as well as the remake, just a rumor, but, you know, people love to run with rumors. As far as how credible this rumor is, it comes from a Facebook post from somebody in no way related to the film.
Extremely.
Not a very reliable rumor, no.
Dude, I don't know if you know this or not, but you're actually not allowed to post false stuff on Facebook. Like, they do a check, and you can't lie or post false information.
Wow,
so
that makes a lot of sense.
Pretty sure it's real.
It
makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. That's why I run my life in such a way that whatever I see on Facebook, I believe to be true.
Yeah, exactly right. As long as it's something that I believe.
Yeah, if I see a second thing that is not the thing I saw the first time, I get mad at the second thing for not being the first thing I saw.
Yeah, and not being the thing that I think it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it works. And that's how facts are born.
Yep, thus fact.
So, Steve, I say before we get into the movie review ski, I say we just take a little detour over here at the Preview Palace.
Hey, come on over here, guys.
This
is totally safe. Don't worry at all. I'm a stranger luring you into a van. You'll be really happy with the results.
Oh, boy, where are you going to take us to?
Welcome to the Preview Palace.
Oh, boy, we're here. We're
and my dick's
here.
out.
Oh, no. We've got to go. And Steve, I say while we're here in this preview palace, I'm pretty happy with this concept of these people that would be cast here.
So let's talk about that cast then.
I think you've got some second opinions. Maybe you got something else you want to offer up as some alternatives. How about we just go ahead and let's kick this off with our main male role here. Of course, in the original, we got one B-Dub. I hope everybody calls him B-Dub. I think you'd like that, don't you? B-Dub, Bruce Willis?
Yeah, Bruce Willis seems like a guy who loves to joke around about his name and stuff. Yeah.
I think so, right? He seems like he'd be pretty okay with that. So instead of B-Dub, people have proposed that perhaps a Bob Downey Jr.
RDJ, yeah. So
RDJ and B-Dub.
RDJ and B-Dub.
We're cool.
I should talk immediately about my major problem with the casting, and that is that in the original casting, both of the main women are over 40, and Bruce Willis is under 40.
Yeah,
In this recast, the male character is older than all of them, older than the second oldest by 14 years. So it just doesn't make sense to me. That's just a bad cast.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Yeah, like I know that Robert Downey Jr. could play it really well. I would love to see him get to do something fun and goofy and like nerdy and kind of doofy like what Bruce Willis was in this movie, but that is also the things that stuck out to me. I was like, man, seems like in the original they're all about the same age, but yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong.
He could play it.
I will be and I'll be super stoked to look as young as he does when I'm that age. You know what I mean? He still is a younger looking guy for being somebody of his age, but yeah, at the same time, it's like, isn't there enough age offset between men and women in Hollywood anyway?
Right.
And isn't that also just kind of like, I don't know, which we'll talk about this when we get to the movie review itself, but like there's such an age stigma with like women no longer being hot after a certain age in Hollywood anyway.
The theme of the movie. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And now you're wanting to just kind of like further prove this by putting a guy that's well into his 50s and he's still a fucking hunk, but he gets to, hook up with two different younger women. Like that just seems like that's
that completely misses the point. Yeah. I'm gonna give you a few options for each of these. So I've got a few options.
The Rock, obviously,
for this. Of course, The Rock. Duh.
Obviously, number one.
Yeah, I mean they made that sort of Die Hard ripoff with The Rock. So now you make The Death Becomes Her.
Yeah, he just plays every Bruce Willis role.
Yeah, can't wait for Hudson Rock, I guess. Anyway, so I thought of a few people, and I need you all to remember, Bruce Willis is not some unknown name in 1992. This is John McClane. He's already done Die Hard and Die Hard 2. So we're not looking for unknown names to play this role. So I immediately think, who can be dorky and still cute? Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, Ryan Reynolds in there, huh?
Now, Ryan Reynolds is a possibility, but then I thought deeper, and I thought Chris Evans. Because Chris Evans.
Yeah, actually, that could work.
He has that Bruce Willis-like quality to him, where he can be
He's a masculine-looking guy.
Yeah, really masculine-looking, really stoic, but he can also be a dork.
Yeah, that would work, actually. And again, his age is a little bit more... What, probably
he's 39. He's 39, so he's closer to what Bruce Willis was around this time. And then
that could work.
Another option, just in case Chris Evans falls through. Maybe he's got something else going on. I think Jake Gyllenhaal could do it.
Jake Gyllenhaal, I could probably see that happening as well.
I wouldn't have thought about that, except that I just recently watched Far From Home, and it was a reminder that Jake Gyllenhaal can do comedy really well because. Like things like Nightcrawler and what was that one where Hugh Jackman took that dude hostage because he thought
Prisoners.
Oh, that's brutal.
Holy hell.
Anyway,
that
Jake Gyllenhaal is like
movie.
so good and intense in those that like I wouldn't have thought of that, except that he was like he's goofy in Far From Home, and it's like, oh right, Jake Gyllenhaal can be goofy.
Yeah, I think that could work too. And then you kind of like nerd him up a little bit too.
Right,
So
yeah.
That's the fun of seeing Bruce Willis in this, is like he's a really handsome guy, but he just doesn't know how to style himself at all in this movie, so he just looks like a dork.
Yeah, for sure. So
okay, I'm on board with that.
Those are the possible men. Now,
all right.
Our other secondary character is, of course, Isabella Rossolini.
Yes, and in the remake rumor is Lady Gaga, which I think is pretty cool casting, actually.
Lady Gaga, yeah.
She's got this witchy woman
That's not
thing
terrible.
about her.
That's not terrible.
Yeah, it's not bad, actually.
For sure. And I think she's got that mystical thing about her, and she could definitely, like, she looks different in every role. She has like a face for changing. Like she's really able to just
master of disguise,
morph into So yeah, I think she could do it. I probably have less of a problem with this casting than any of the others, but I was thinking of who could do it that is much like Isabella Rossolini at the time, almost 40. Who could do it who's older? And so I thought of two immediately. The first was Salma Hayek.
Oh, Lord, yeah.
Is age-defying gorgeous. So
I was going to say, I think she's well over 40.
Yeah, she's 53.
Good God,
yes.
what?
And the second I thought of, Sofia Vergara, who is also almost 50.
That's insane.
They're both age-defyingly beautiful, which is what the character's supposed to be.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that kind of makes it even cooler.
Yeah, also what Isabella Rossolini is kind of going for. I mean, the joke they make is that she says that she looks 38, and Isabella Rossolini is actually 39 when they were filming it. Yeah. So, like, she was close.
I like that.
Yeah, so I think either of them could work perfectly well. And they bring that Isabella Rossolini, like, a slight accent.
Totally, yeah.
That adds that little bit of mystique to it.
I like that. You could also throw in a Catherine Zeta in there, too, probably, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, 100%. Yeah, I didn't even think of it, but yes. Oh, man.
Any of those would work. That's a good idea. Yeah, and I like, too, like you said, you kind of, because of the accent and stuff like that, you do get a little bit more of a exotic kind of flair. That's cool.
Yeah. So, the main two, the way they were cast, we got Anne Hathaway for Meryl Streep.
Yeah.
And Kate Hudson for Goldie Hawn. Now,
yeah.
Anne Hathaway, okay. Fine.
I'll take it. I'll take Anne Hathaway.
Yeah, she's a little too young, I think, to be playing the too old.
Yeah, she's a little too young and still just absolutely drop-dead gorgeous to be playing someone who's trying to stay young and drop-dead gorgeous, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so that's a little just off.
But I think she could play the snooty movie star Hollywood elite thing
for sure.
Very well.
She could do all that. And she, in a lot of ways, is I think, properly compared to Meryl Streep.
Yeah, great actress too.
Yes, but she does something I think that Meryl Streep does less, and that is she's able to get goofy.
True.
And that has nothing to do with this movie. I'm just thinking about how good Anne Hathaway is and how weird it is that people just don't like her for some reason.
I know, right?
Yeah, but I came up with a few names here that I thought would work. That I think they're older and would fit better. I'm going to save the one I think is best for last, though. Okay. I think Angelina Jolie could definitely step in here.
Oh, man. Totally.
We know she can play that sort of cruel role and stuff like that, and she has that.
Do you need somebody who can pull off that, like, pseudo-Cruella de Vil kind of vibe like Meryl Streep does?
Yeah. And then I thought of Viola Davis, who is absolutely amazing. She's 55. Also another problem.
She still looks amazing.
Yeah, they don't have wrinkles going or anything.
No.
I didn't want to say this name too much because I think we say it almost every episode, but Toni Collette. Toni Collette would be perfect.
Put her in any movie. It's just going to be fucking awesome.
Yeah, Toni Collette would be perfect in this role. So that's who I think is perfect. But then there are a lot of actresses in their 40s and 50s that could play these roles, so it's weird to pick Anne Hathaway and Kate Hudson, though Kate Hudson is 41.
Here's the thing about Kate Hudson.
Yeah, let's talk about the thing about Kate Hudson.
Yeah, okay, and this is something that Kate and I were talking about whenever we saw that, rumored cast listing and stuff like that, and I was like, I think it's okay. And, I was like, whatever, it's fun. It's Goldie Hawn's daughter, so it makes sense. For one, that's just pure nepotism, because, as Kate pointed out, like, name a good Kate Hudson movie, period. Like, okay, she was in Almost Famous, but she's not a main character or anything like that. I looked through her like filmography on IMDb. For one, she's one of those actresses that seems like she's been around forever, but she's been in like 30-something movies. She's not been in that many movies, and they're all garbage, dude. Like,
I know
some people like Skeleton Key, but I've never seen it, so I don't know about that one.
Well, we should do it sometime. I think there's a bit to talk about with that movie. It's not the greatest, but it's there are elements to it that are good. But
like, other than nepotism, why should she do it?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, and this is, I mean, we'll go ahead and talk about it now. Goldie Hawn like built her career. She comes from non-actor parents. Kate Hudson has 2 actor parents. Like,
yeah,
she had a career built in if she wanted to take it.
Born on third base, as you say.
Yeah, Goldie Hawn built herself comedically. She was on Laugh-In. Like, she earned an Academy Award in 1969. Like, she built up her career.
Yeah.
So when we see her in this, it's like, yeah, she's like this badass who's built herself to this element. Like, of course, I want to see her get her like a revenge or whatever. Kate Hudson is just like, well, yeah, it's another Kate Hudson movie. Like,
yeah,
what am I supposed to get out of this?
Sure.
So yeah, I thought of a few names. Charlize Theron, who I think could also work in the other role, but I think she's also just comedically great, and the Goldie Hawn role in this is just so funny. Not that Meryl Streep's not funny. Meryl Streep's hilarious in this.
But the thing about Charlize Theron too is, like, just like Meryl Streep, she looks like a movie star. She's one of those people that if you ran into her like in real life, you'd be like, you're not a normal person. You're a movie star. She has that glamorous look about her, but also at the same time, she's probably 40-something now, I would guess, right?
Yeah, she's 45. Yeah.
Yeah, and still just absolutely gorgeous, man. So yeah, I think she could do this well, and she plays funny well too.
She does, and she's very happy to just ugly herself up for a role. So to like put on the fat suit and just be sitting there eating cake icing straight out of the tin, like, she would probably embrace that. Absolutely.
Totally.
Yeah. Then I also thought of Amy Adams.
That could work.
Who I think could fit in. She is funny, can be funny, but I think the best possible option is Rachel McAdams.
Rachel McAdams.
Yes. Rachel
Let me
McAdams.
think about that.
She's very funny.
Maybe.
She is also a great actress, and she's 41, so she's in the range.
See, I think of her as being like younger than that, but like I think of her as like being our age, you know?
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
but yeah,
well, she is
actually been
kind of our age. She's not that far away.
Hey, speak for yourself, old man. I'm a spry 36.
That's right.
But I do think that Charlize Theron is probably my favorite choice right there. That would totally work.
I think there are a lot of people who could probably fit in there, though. I mean, what if you put in Natasha Lyonne? That would be awesome. I love her.
Yeah,
I could see her doing it.
Awesome.
She's 40 something, so yeah,
wow,
that'd be cool.
That's cool, man. Yeah, but really, it's like if that rumored cast list gets put out there and that is what they're going with, it'll be fine. But I like your suggestions, Steve. I think you got some good ones there.
Yeah, I'd still give it a watch, but I just can't imagine it being as good as this one, because I love this movie.
I have a hard time with that.
Yeah.
I have a hard time thinking that they will go as hard into the dark humor and gothic vibe that this movie has in the remake and stuff. I hope that I'm wrong, but I don't know. This movie, I think, just really nailed the tone that I wanted out of it. Yeah. And the thing about it is like, whenever it came out, this is one of those movies that I remember seeing commercials for. I remember seeing advertisements for in comic books with, Goldie Hawn with the hole through her stomach and stuff like this. Like, it was kind of everywhere, and I remember people talking about it, but it kind of just barely went over breaking even at the box office. It wasn't really a huge hit.
Not a huge hit, but it was number one at the box office its first week, so it was the advertising campaign worked at least, and the people that did go see it liked it. I think as far as the people I've talked to, now critics weren't as happy about it, but most people I know who kind of saw this movie back in the 90s love this movie. It's kind of like one of those like Clue that critics weren't all for, but it really did hit audiences just right. Like it was just silly enough
to be that way,
to be the type of thing that people like, but it didn't draw out massive audiences or anything.
Yeah. Now the first time that I watched this movie was, I mean, years and years ago.
Yeah.
Like probably at least 10 or 15 years ago was when I saw this movie for the first time.
Yeah.
And I remember going into it like expecting things like, yeah, her head's going to be on backwards and stuff like this. But I remember watching it back in the day and just being like, man, this movie is weird. This isn't really like what I was expecting in a lot of ways. So like, I don't remember necessarily loving it or hating it, just kind of filing it away as strange movie, and that's about it. And so, going into it and watching it again for the first time in forever last night, I had no idea what to expect. Like, again, I remember the special effects shots, but I couldn't tell you what the story was about or anything like that. Like, I had forgotten that B-Dub was in it at all.
Wow.
So whenever the movie kicks off and it's like the cast list and everything, I was like, oh shit, all these people are in this movie in 92?
92, yeah.
Golly, man. I was like, holy shit, this movie's a bigger production than I think that I remembered it being. So I was essentially watching it for the first time last night. So this is all very fresh and very new to me. When was the first time that you watched it?
Whenever it came out on video back in the day. This is exactly the type of movie that my sister and I would rent. This was a year after Addams Family. This is around the same time as like Beetlejuice and stuff like that. So like any of these types of movies that were like dark comedies or horror comedies like this, it's like that was immediate for me. I wanted to see it. The poster made me want to see it. Seeing it in the back of comic books made me want to see it. And it had Bruce Willis, who I loved, and Goldie Hawn, who I loved, because Goldie Hawn movies, like, even though you look back on them and see the reviews of them and see how they did at the box office, a lot of Goldie Hawn movies in the 80s and 90s just didn't hit in the theater. So many of us saw them on TV, on cable, growing up, that Goldie Hawn, like, to kids was like, oh, she's a huge movie star, and she was. It's just that, a lot of the movies weren't making the big bucks. So to me, like, seeing Goldie Hawn was in it, like, I want to see that. And as soon as it came out on video, I remember renting it and watching it and loving it, just thinking it was hilarious.
I wonder what was going on in the world that, like, right around the same time period, like all the movies you just named off, Beetlejuice, Addams Family, this, like, what was going on that we had all these, like, super dark, gothic comedies coming out?
Some of it was the normalization of just talking about graphic, gruesome things throughout the late 70s and early 80s on the news. Also, Satanic Panic put a lot of very fresh, vivid, shocking images in people's minds. It was and then of course the fact that we were starting to watch war on television.
Ooh, like actual death and dismemberment being what we watch on TV.
I mean,
that's true.
People Under the Stairs is around this time. 91, I think, was People Under the Stairs. So like, the comedic plus horror elements being thrown together around this time, I think a lot of it did have to do with just how much, like, you would just be watching a normal everyday sitcom and then the news comes on and you're hearing about terrible murders, and that's just the normal flow of things. So I think a lot of filmmakers around the time were kind of dealing with that, satirizing it. Maybe movies like Terror Vision, which came out a few years before this, which reminds me of Society, which this movie also reminds me of. Terror Vision was really about, like, how cable is taking over our lives, though it's ridiculous, and about how aliens are using cable to take over our lives, but still, like, it's the type of thing that people were thinking about around that time.
Yeah, so when you look at it that way, it's like, well, how could this have not been what's happening in movies, right? That makes sense, man. That makes sense.
Yeah, so the darkness in this is there the whole time. It never lightens up, but it's never not funny either. Like, the movie just remains silly and funny the whole time.
it rides that fine line where it's like, yeah, it is extremely dark and morbid and fucked up in a lot of ways, but there is enough levity and cartoonish physicality in the movie to where it does distract you. Very much like the Addams Family in that way, where like a lot of the stuff in the Addams Family is fucking morbid, but it is all kind of surrounded by this almost gleeful, cartoonish comedy that offsets it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that this is dealing with that sort of stuff, and it's also in a vein of this, I don't know if you can call it maybe an outright obsession like we had with Australia in the late 80s, but there is a seeming obsession with Beverly Hills throughout the 80s.
Yeah, that was one of those things, man, that like I just very specifically remember always hearing about in TV shows and cartoons and Nickelodeon. Like Beverly Hills was like the center of entertainment culture when we were kids, right?
Yeah, and I think OJ actually is kind of the end of that because it happened in Brentwood, and it kind of made them stop wanting to cast a big light on the rich areas of LA. But there was this period of time, where like, you know, Beverly Hills Cop, Shampoo, which Goldie Hawn herself was in, was based in Beverly Hills. Down and Out in Beverly Hills, 1986. Troop Beverly Hills.
I'm about to say. Awesome. Beverly Hills Cop, of course.
Yeah. Beverly Hills Madam came out in 1986 also. Like, and then also as I said, Terror Vision and Society, which both were sort of satirizing the weird and disgusting lives of the rich and famous in Beverly Hills. So this movie is like right in that vein. And really does, like, I think it's probably like the final word on that, because I didn't really find many movies after that I would say fit into it, but it's kind of like this movie was like all of that sort of satire and stuff all rolled into one. So we get the absurdity, we get the body horror, we get like just the aloofness of the rich, like even in the face of like somebody with a hole in the middle of their body, like they just kind of shrug it off like, well, it's not me. Like so I think that this movie is really just very typical of 1992. It is exactly how people were kind of feeling, which is maybe why the critics, because like a lot of the criticism was that the satire doesn't feel like it does anything. Like
really?
Yeah, and I think maybe it was just too close, where it's like,
I was gonna say, yeah,
now we look back on it and really go like, oh yeah, that's 1992, but in 1992 it's like, yeah, right, I know, we know this. But like, it's important because now we look back on it, it's like, oh, okay, so this is really what people were struggling with around that time, or specifically what rich white people were struggling with around that time.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like after, a couple decades worth of scoping out on that scene and that obsession with that area and that time period and stuff, to go back and watch a movie like this where it's all these people obsessed with staying young and staying beautiful and just fighting over what each other have and all this kind of stuff. It's like, oh yeah, no, this is kind of exactly what I would think makes sense when, all that we were shown of this area, on the East Coast, like we are as kids, was, fucking bodybuilders on the beach and like people getting plastic surgery and nose jobs and being beautiful and blah, blah, blah. It's like at its core, it is all this obsessive vanity, toxic bullshit that this movie portrays.
You know what? Honestly, though the remake rumors are literally just terrible a Facebook post that has nothing to do with it. If there were to be a remake, the way to do it is to shoot it as a reality show.
That would make sense.
Like, this would, it'd just be basically keeping up with the Kardashians, but the humor being that at no point does the reality crew step in while they're like killing each other and shooting each other. And,
Dude, no doubt. Actually, I was kind of thinking about that with the remake. I was like, I wonder if you could modernize this in any way or just keep it, straight down the pike as it is. But that would make sense, actually.
Yeah, you could do that,
shoot it as
or
like
you could make
Real Housewives kind of thing.
Right, yeah. Or and that would probably be the best way to do it because you're talking about over 40s. But if you were to do it, say, in 10 years, it could be about YouTube personalities. Like, yeah, this is something I think that it fits current times more readily than it may have even fit in 1992. Like this, people have become more obsessed with youth. Like the fact that somebody thought of recasting this and recast it with people younger, like they couldn't even imagine
the narrative
someone
has
in their
not changed.
Yeah, exactly. Someone in their 40s playing that role? Impossible.
Yeah, they'd be mummies. They'd be corpses.
So this hasn't changed. It's only gotten worse and more vain and more like, because we all exist on the internet. We all have some sort of like persona that we're projecting on the internet. So we're all way more obsessed with it than we were 30 years ago.
Oh, I'd say that we're all definitely way more image obsessed than we used to be. I mean, this is such a visual age that we're in. I mean, that, everything is presented with a visual,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things that, like, every time that you go on your phone and go to Instagram or whatever, all you're looking at is like beautiful people with amazing bodies, and they've got filters over them that make them look younger.
Thank you all for doing that, by the way. I think about that sometimes, and I think like, man, the people that have great bodies, I'm really glad they share them with us. It's really cool of them to do that, because
thanks for that.
It's really nice to look at.
Sure.
Yeah.
You did it.
Thanks.
But considering this is such a image-obsessed age that we live in, I think that a remake of this actually makes perfect sense.
Sure.
And it also shows that, just the more things change, the more they stay the same, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it absolutely would work. So, yeah, if anybody out there wants to get that remake going, holla at us. We
got some ideas.
I think we already gave them to you just now.
Trademark Dead and Lovely. But Trademark Dead and Lovely. And of course, this movie is directed by, just kind of a one-off sort of amateur director, somebody that
didn't do much.
I don't know if I've seen any of his other flicks or anything, but Bob Robert Zamantor.
It's Zamansky. I think. Yeah, Bobby Zamansky.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's his name.
So yeah, little Robert Zemeckis came in and made this movie. Dude, look at his IMDb from 1979 to about 1995.
Yeah, you've seen all the movies.
You've seen all of his movies.
He's one of those names, though, that's weird, though, where it's like if you drop Martin Scorsese or Steven Spielberg or James Cameron, like everybody knows who that is. But
right, but
there's
Zemeckis
plenty of people that I know that, if you mention the name of Robert Zemeckis, they'll be like, who's that?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, you've seen all of his fucking movies.
Oh yeah, no, I've definitely heard people say that Spielberg directed Back to the Future and stuff like.
Right,
it's like
totally, man.
No,
and it's like, dude. Meanwhile, you could wallpaper your fucking house with Zemeckis' pedigree.
Yeah. At this point, Romancing the Stone, Back to the Future 1 through 3, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So,
wow,
pretty big stuff. You can also see how he is in some ways. As I said when we did What Lies Beneath, he's a lot like James Cameron in that he's really trying to advance the technology of computer graphics and stuff. Just looking at Back to the Future and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where we have an animated world and a real life person in it. Like he really has really leaned into CGI.
Movie magic, man.
Yeah, so he's responsible for things like that Christmas Carol movie that's off-putting, and that Beowulf movie that's off-putting, and all those movies that are off-putting.
Way to go, Bobby.
Yeah, but without that's the thing though, is like in a lot of ways these are tests. Like this movie is made by ILM, but in a lot of ways they were testing stuff that they were doing for the movie that came out next for them, Jurassic Park.
Kind of a big deal. You might have heard of that one. Hell, you might have heard a review of that one on this award-deserving podcast. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
For sure. So
# ouch my dino head.
So yeah, Zemeckis is awesome, and he definitely seems invested in continuing to make CGI stuff that gets better and better or more human. but also that means he's always on the cutting edge, so sometimes it doesn't look good when you look back on it. This movie, a bit different than that, I would say, still looks pretty great when you look back on it.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And probably because they were more limited, and they were like, well, we'll have to do that practical. We can't quite do that yet, you know?
Yeah,
but yeah, still totally holds up, you know? Yeah, and this movie, like, the direction and the vibe of this movie is really unique. Like I was saying earlier, it has that gothic darkness to it, but it has comedic elements too. I think it's a really, really well shot movie. I think that the way that they frame a lot of the scenes and stuff is exactly what it needed to be.
Yeah.
And dude, there's so many parts in this where I almost started feeling like, am I maybe watching a Tim Burton movie? Could Tim Burton have like directed this? Because it does have a Burton-y quality to it.
It does, yeah. And I think you know, they're probably going for a little bit of that Burton success because you know, Batman had been a success just a little bit before this, and Edward Scissorhands and stuff. So yeah, and Beetlejuice wasn't at 90. So yeah,
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, they were going after some of that, and also Addams Family was the year before this. So yeah, that aesthetic was popular around this time. And I think it is all coming from Tim Burton's early success.
Yeah. And this movie, like I said, I think it just looks and feels fantastic.
Yeah.
So, props to Bobby Zed.
Yeah, way to go, Bobby Zed.
Oh, Bobby Zed.
This is written by Martin Donovan and David Koepp, or Coep, as I've heard some people say. I'm pretty sure.
Like I know who the fuck they are, Steve. Who the fuck is that?
Well, I mean, Martin Donovan, you might not know. He mostly very prolific TV writer, but you might not know him by name. But David Koepp also wrote a few movies you may have heard of, and I'm gonna omit two, just to bring them around and really, really make your dick fly off.
I better tape this thing down real quick here.
Yeah, so he wrote Carlito's Way. He wrote Mission Impossible.
Awesome movie.
Both good movies. Also, Stir of Echoes, a movie we will eventually do. I enjoy that movie. Also, he wrote Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire. Has recently written the Kevin Bacon horror movie that I've heard a lot of good stuff about, You Should Have Left. So
I don't know that one.
He's got a pretty good pedigree. But Ben, let me just name two movies. You ready for this?
Hang on, let me finish strapping this thing down here. I'm having to use a lot of tape to get the thing taped down to the inside of my leg. Hang on now.
He also has writing credit.
That's it.
He also has writing credit on Jurassic Park.
And
man. The Shadow.
No way.
You love The Shadow.
You know how much I love The Shadow.
That's why I saved it for last.
Dude, 1 year as a birthday wild card pick. I'm totally going to pull The Shadow, dude.
Yeah.
Largo Lane. Oh my God, The Shadow. Okay, so I love this guy. Is what you're saying.
Yeah, and if you look at his IMDb, he's got a ton of stuff in there that he's definitely been. But this is one where it's early in his career, and like basically, I read an interview with him, and he was like, basically, we were starving, and we thought of this idea, and we thought it would probably be a small little indie movie with like a $5 million budget, and then it turned into this. So
and then $50 million got added onto it. Wow, man. Yeah. That's cool. And this was originally conceived apparently as a continuation of Zemeckis' work on is it Tales from the Dark Side?
Tales from the Crypt.
Tales from the Crypt series.
Well, it was originally...
What the hell? I had no idea.
Yeah, originally supposed to be in the vein of the Tales from the Crypt 1972 anthology movie. So this would have been basically like another type of story in that vein, but a feature-length movie. But also, while, getting involved with this, he was also involved in producing Tales from the Crypt. So a lot of people, I am included in this, a lot of people look at this and see basically a feature-length Tales from the Crypt episode, because it feels so much like it, because most Tales from the Crypt episodes always keep an edge of humor. Zemeckis was involved in producing and directing some episodes of Tales from the Crypt. I would say a lot of episodes kind of have a very similar visual feel to them. So, like, watching this feels very much like the Crypt Keeper is going to pop up at the end and be like, "Good fright, kiddies," or whatever, you know?
Yeah, because there's so many like big spooky mansions on hills and like lightning through windowsills and shit like that. Like, once I learned that it was kind of conceived as being part of that world, I was like, oh, this makes perfect sense now.
Part of that world.
Aww. Yeah, so that was kind of a wild card for me, but again, it makes sense. But also, too, if it would have been marketed as such, it would have made millions less dollars and probably would have attracted less of a huge, humongous cast.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you know? I mean, well, I don't know, though. Meryl Streep said that she was won over by the movie. Like, she thought it would be a fun little movie to do. So, if Meryl Streep was won over by it, I can't imagine it would be hard to convince anybody else.
Dude, and that's cool, too, that she wanted to do this. Because, like, I would just think of Meryl Streep as, like, everybody's mom's favorite actress, you know?
Well, yeah, looking at her IMDb, you can see why you might think that. Because it's, like, a lot of titles that maybe growing up that you maybe heard your mom or your aunts, adults talking about. But they weren't exactly child accessible.
Yeah.
They're like, because she picks meaty roles. She doesn't want small little things. So this is probably my first real, like, Meryl Streep movie as a kid. Now that I think of it, like, I can't think of anything she was in that I probably would have watched. So
yeah, same.
Yeah. So I've seen a lot of her movies now, but at this time, this would have been the first real, goofy movie she did. So
yeah, is this the only time we're gonna get to talk about her on the show? Has she been in anything else horror related?
So I don't think she's done anything else horror related. She did say that she would never do anything involving a ton of makeup effects again. She said it felt like going to the dentist. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, I can get it from her perspective as an actress who's really, really trying to get into the role, and then you're also sitting in there doing makeup, and you have to worry about how the makeup looks more than how you're embodying the role. Like, it's just not her type of thing.
Well, and it probably restricts you from performing in certain ways and stuff like that, too. You have to act around the prosthetics and the makeup and stuff like that. So, okay, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So, I understand. But, yeah, we probably won't be seeing her again unless we do some wild-ass wild card like The River Wild. Which is one Ben has suggested as a wild card before.
Dude, I've talked about the fucking River Wild since we started this fucking show, so you know she's coming back. Yeah. How do you think she does in this? Because I think that she totally embodies this, like, you know, totally stuck up, self-obsessed, starlet, phony as shit. Yeah, obsessed with staying relevant, being jealous kind of person. She is so well.
Great. She does an amazing job, and like because she says her absurd lines in a way that makes them absurd instead of in a way like with a knowing wink where it's like, oh, haha, she's funny. It's like, oh no, that's what she would say. Like, yeah, it's insane. It's so funny because she's really embodying this terrible person.
Yeah, well, it almost seems like very self-referential and self-deprecating in a lot of ways, too, for her to be this Hollywood, wannabe starlet that is obsessed with, keeping her young appearance and stuff like this so she can stay relevant and important. Like, that almost seems like a Meryl Streep joke about Meryl Streep.
Yeah, which would be so far off target, too, because to think somebody in 1992 would be like, oh, Meryl Streep, she's on her way out.
Yeah.
Here we are in 2020. It's like, no, she's not. She is nowhere near her way out.
Yeah, she has like a Scrooge McDuck fucking swimming pool full of Oscars that she does laps in every day. I don't think she was on her way out in the early 90s.
Think about this. 21 Oscar nominations, 17 of them for Best Actress. Jeez. That's like being up for league MVP 17 times. And it's insane. Like, what? The other 4 are for Best Supporting Actress. She doesn't have any of those, like, best, cast ensemble or whatever. Like, all of them are specifically, she's great. So,
yeah,
it's pretty obvious. People think she knows what she's doing. Goldie Hawn, however, not as many award nominations.
Yeah, not as many accolades or anything.
Yeah.
But I think that she's so awesome in that she is this, obviously gorgeous, blonde, just kind of bombshell chick that plays dumb and ditzy a lot. That is totally not, and just uses that appearance to her advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's awesome.
I mean, she started out on Laughing playing dumb and ditzy, like in a bikini with paint on, making just silly jokes. But she is by far not that. She knows what she's doing. She's a very intelligent woman who's gotten herself where she is. So this role kind of works perfectly for her, where she is playing that pretend, ditz, but she's really got this plan for revenge.
Oh, yeah. And it's so fun, too, that, somebody that is known for being as gorgeous and stuff as she is puts herself into all these roles in this movie. Like, at the first, whenever we see her at the play, she is, like, totally not made up, like, kind of mousy brown hair, very downplayed. And then, of course, we get to see her, like, in the aftermath after Meryl Streep steals her man, where she's, like, in a fat suit in her, like... cat lady apartment eating icing out of a tub.
That is a mood that a lot of us have been in recently, I think. Where it's just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna eat, sit on this couch, I don't give a fuck. So I love that. I love how she's just watching the woman she hates die in a movie over and over and over.
Yeah, specifically that death scene, just rewinding it so she can see it again and again. Dude, she plays like this crazy stalker obsessed with murdering her person. Like, it's easy to forget because so much of the movie you see her public persona where she is out and out putting on a normal face, but then when she goes home, she's got like the crazy psycho obsessive mirror with all the pictures of her, like murder and death and all this shit all over it.
It is
it's crazy.
Yeah, the level of obsession is crazy, but I think we gotta realize that this movie sets up a relationship that they've had ahead of time where this has continually happened, that Madeline has stolen Helen's boyfriend.
Yeah.
So
and it does it without any kind of clumsy turbo exposition or like tons of flashbacks. It's like you get it. And also too, Zemeckis and the writers trusted the audience. It's like, oh no, you'll get the impression that this has been going on for a while just by these characters' interactions and dialogue and stuff. It doesn't spoon feed you everything that led up to this, but there's no question they have a history of this same shit happening the entire time they've known each other.
So, and it would be easy to mistake this for Helen being obsessed with Madeline as the only way this is going. But this is a two-way obsession. Madeline is obsessed with stealing Helen's boyfriends.
Yeah, totally.
She is obsessed with taking from Helen. She thinks Helen has something she doesn't have. Helen thinks the same of Madeline.
Mm-hmm.
This is an interesting example of this comes from queer theory in critical studies of just basically looking at a relationship like this where two people of the same sex are pursuing someone of the opposite sex.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically are at odds with one another trying to get to this goal. In a lot of ways this is portrayed, it's usually two men and this blank slate of a woman who is basically just a token to be won.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's like you just described 8 billion movies.
Right. This inverts that.
It does in a lot of ways, yeah.
This gives all the personality to the two female characters, and the male character is, in a lot of ways, just a token. He is just something they project onto. He's nothing more
very
than...
much so.
Yeah. He has to escape them to be a person.
Yeah, and he even ends up in a damsel distress, I'm hanging from a ledge scenario at the end of the movie. It's like he is very much playing a traditionally effeminate role.
They have a sword fight over him, essentially, but with shovels. Think about that. Okay, the sword fight is dick on dick. Like, that is, let's measure each other's dicks. That is what it's about. That's what it was always meant to portray back when you couldn't just be like, all right, whose dick's bigger? This takes that and puts a spade on the end, right? Which could be
true,
seen
yeah.
as a yonic symbol.
I
They're
suppose
pussy
so.
fighting.
I hadn't thought about
They're
that.
slamming their pussies against each other, trying to prove who is the bigger woman. It is amazing. I love that inversion. So, but what also is part of this theory, though, when two people of the same sex are pursuing someone of the opposite sex and fighting each other along the way, is that what the real relationship is between the two people fighting.
Yeah.
The real love / hatred, whatever you want to label it as, because in this, they portray, they say it's hatred, but it's obsession. It's they can't get each other out of their heads.
Yeah, and it goes both ways. It's not just a one-way street with them.
And then they end up together as a couple. Like, this movie ends in 2029 and they're still together. They could go their own way. They don't.
That's true.
This is this really great portrayal of what these movies are usually really about, and that is these two people of the same sex who want to be close to each other but can't do it. It's just not acceptable. So they have to use an intermediary.
In this case, B-Dub.
In this case, this handsome, successful man who, when he escapes them, is his own person and is successful and is part of the world. But when he's with them, he's nothing but a token. He's nothing but a prize to be fought over.
Yeah, see, that's something that I really got out of the movie, too, is that, Bruce Willis's character in this is just an alcoholic doof. Like, he dresses like a fucking nerd. There's really nothing about him that is all that important or appealing. Like, he's not in here being a stud muffin, Bruce Willis hunk or anything like that, and being all suave and cool. Like, he's not really a cool character at all.
He's a little cool before Madeline,
I guess.
He seems to be a kind of hot shot plastic surgeon, but he's not. He is still a dork. Yeah.
Yeah, and he has money, I guess. So there's
right.
that.
True. Yeah, but still, you're right. Yes.
But his real value and why they're fighting over him is because one has him and the other one doesn't. It's like there's no real value to him on his own other than the fact that the other girl has him, so therefore he's important.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, I think in this case then, like, applying that reading of when these two people are pursuing this one thing, they're actually after each other, I think that fits here. They are after each other. Whether that's a sexual relationship or not, it doesn't matter. It's about them being so obsessed with one another they can't live without each other.
Is that why this movie is such a kind of cult classic among the LGBTQ community?
I don't know exactly. I couldn't answer that. I did read some stuff about it from those from LGBTQ perspectives, but I can't say for sure why. I know that it's really popular in the drag community as well. That they even on RuPaul's Drag Race, like season 7, they had like a fashion show themed after Death Becomes Her.
Wow.
Yeah, and one of the winners from from season 5, Jinx Monsoon, they said that it was a big inspiration as well in becoming a drag queen. I don't know. I would love to know anybody listening who grew up obsessed with this or is now obsessed with this. Let us know. Like, why is this of interest? I would love to know. Yeah,
definitely, man. And how awesome is Bruce Willis in this movie, dude? Because the thing is like, if you look at Bruce Willis's work for the majority of it, since Die Hard, since he became Bruce fucking Willis, there's a lot of just like, show up on the set, phone it in, just be Bruce Willis on camera, just be a hard ass and not give a fuck, and you make Bruce Willis money for doing that. But dude, the thing about it is like, whenever you see him in movies like this, where he's not just phoning it in and he is really committing to a character and getting into it and having fun with the role, it's just such a reminder of like, man, Bruce Willis is a fucking great actor.
Yeah, he when he wants to, just like, with Sixth Sense or Pulp Fiction, like around this time he was getting tons of roles, but you can look back and watch a lot of those movies and be like, Bruce did not want to do this movie. Gotcha. Like,
yeah, exactly.
But this movie, it's like, oh, he wanted to do this. God, he's way into playing this role.
And he's so, again, just nerdy and stupid.
Yep.
And like as a shitty alcoholic and stuff, he's so great. And a lot of his like comedic lines in this are so funny. Like when they tell him that his wife is at the morgue and he's like, oh, she's going to be so mad. He says. And then I also, too, I love that scene, like, in the morning, whenever he and Meryl Streep running into each other. Dude, they live in the same house. They're married, and her line she says to him is, oh, it's you.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And he says, I'm doing great. I slept great tonight, or whatever it is that he says. Like, his reaction, their dynamic and stuff is so fucking good. I think that's something that really drives this movie is just the chemistry of our three main actors and actresses in this is fantastic. But man, Bruce Willis in this is a blast.
Yeah, I mean his name sort of says a lot about his character. His name is Ernest. He does seem to be sincere. He's not good. We're not saying he's a good person, but he seems to be a sincere person. He's not like Meryl Streep's character, who is obviously putting up a front all the time, and then of course Goldie Hawn's character obviously putting up this front whenever she's selling her book and stuff. He's always being himself. He's always being true to himself, which is why it's so hard for him to be with Meryl Streep, because before he's with Madeline, he's a successful plastic surgeon. He is not an alcoholic. He doesn't have shaky hands. He gets with her after a few years with her. He's this complete wreck alcoholic. He doesn't see any point in life. He doesn't care. But he's still good at what he does. Now he works on dead bodies. And that's another moment where you see like his name really being fulfilled. His earnestness when that woman says that he worked on her grandmother who died and then asks like what his secret is. And he just starts talking very openly about how he makes dead bodies look good. And it's just like... The character doesn't see like, oh, I'm not supposed to talk about that in public. He's just this earnest type of guy who, while he's not a good person, he does have the capacity to be a good person. And
totally. These
other two, we're supposed to see them as like not necessarily good people, but a part of a system. Like they are the results of this system that tells women that they lose value as they age. Like, he leaves them, lives like 20 something more years or whatever in a completely different relationship, and then has like at his funeral, like all these great things they say about him. Like, as a man of age, he still has a full life ahead of him. But them,
totally.
They have to cling to their youth because otherwise they're devalued.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, he's really fantastic in this, and I love too seeing him like whenever he flies off the handle and like just even that little moment where like Meryl Streep is like about to fall down the stairs, and he just gives it that it's very Bugs Bunny, just a little boink push over the edge. It's so great seeing him flip out and stuff in this, man.
Yeah.
He really does a great job. And there's so much like cartoonish stuff all over this movie where it feels like very dark Looney Tunes a lot of times to me, you know?
Yeah, the head turned around backwards, the hole through the stomach without like guts falling out or anything. It's cartoonish.
Like Meryl Streep's head getting pressed into her shoulders.
Yeah.
And even at the very end of the movie where they fall down the stairs and break off into a million pieces, like that, it's not how a real rotten corpse would fall apart. You don't fall apart at the joints like a fucking action figure that just got dropped or something. But it's so silly that it lightens the movie up without making it a completely disgusting, morbid exploration of what this story could have been. You know?
Right. Yeah. That's what makes this a comedy instead of just a straight horror movie.
Yeah, totally, man, totally.
Yeah, because this could, I mean, you take the comedic element out of it, like just take the jokes out. It's a movie about a guy and his mistress planning to kill his wife, and then she comes back to life from the dead. Like, that's a horror movie. That's a horror premise, at least.
But the thing is like, for all we know, that could have been the original premise, because this movie, after it was done, got a apparently disastrous test screening. People really hated, especially the ending of the movie, and they went about doing a drastic amount of recuts, changed the ending, cut characters out. Like Tracy Ullman was in the movie at some point, apparently.
Yeah, they also
totally cut her storyline.
Yeah, they cut a few people out. Jonathan Silverman also played a small role too. Yeah, they did some recuts. It was always a comedy, though. It was always supposed to be a comedy. They didn't come in later and add that. So it wouldn't have been too much different. It's actually, the interesting thing is the original ending is happier.
Really?
And that didn't work with audiences. The original
What was
ending,
happier about the original?
He's still alive, I think, is the only difference. In the original ending, he escapes from the party. He meets Tracy Ullman in a bar. Tracy Ullman helps him fake his death, and then they escape into retirement.
Huh, okay.
So it's not much different, except that he doesn't actually die.
But I like the fact that since he does die at the end of the finished product there, we get to focus on how Meryl Streep and Goldie Hawn's relationship has joined up and changed since then.
Yeah,
it keeps
getting
the focus
rid of
on
him
them, which I
like. It
like.
helps the movie, I think. Like, I'm glad they had to change that ending.
But yeah, I like that at the end how it does keep the focus on those two's relationship, because for the third act of the movie, we've actually spent quite a lot of time with Bruce Willis kind of being the center of the attention there, which, I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence about. Like, I love getting to spend more time with his character, considering that it's kind of like his breaking point and his escape from these two crazy women that are obsessed with each other. But then at the same time, I could also sit here and say, objectively, it might make the narrative kind of inconsistent, because we've been following the two ladies the whole movie, and then the third act is kind of all him.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Is that an okay departure to you? Or are you like, man, why did he take over being the source of the movie right here?
I think that, it does move a little into his perspective for the majority of that, the climax, I would say. And I think maybe, you're right. I mean, it is shifting now our narrative perspective a bit. I don't know, though. I mean, I don't know what we would have gotten from seeing it from the other perspective. Like, they don't change. Like, the movie, I guess, really isn't about them in a lot of ways. Like, it shows who they are very clearly, but they don't have a character arc in the sense of actually changing. They kind of accept that they're stuck together, but they're not like, they don't learn that it's not that they're stuck together, it's that they actually want to be together. So I guess it did have to take over there. Somebody had to have an arc. And so it was him.
That's true. Yeah. And I guess he kind of again reached that breaking point and figured out,
right,
I gotta get the fuck away from these people.
Yeah, you're right though. It is a shift. It is a change from the focus of the rest of the movie.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like I said, it's like I'm not really all that mad about it. At the same
it
time,
works just fine for me. Yeah.
Totally, man.
That's just to try to find some flaws. That's definitely one for sure. But it's not gonna take you out of the movie at all.
No, I don't think so either, man. And our cast is kind of rounded out by our fourth kind of main character here, which I'm so glad that they found it in their hearts to cast someone as plain, someone as just normal and homely as Isabella Rossolini to be this very hyper-sexualized.
Yeah, I'm sure they just found
character.
her at a truck stop somewhere or something, just like, who's this homely girl? Well, you know what? We'll put her in the movie.
We'll give her a shot. We'll give her a try here. This is not a traditionally sexy woman or anything like that, but worth a try.
She is just pure sex in this movie, but she's also funny. Isabella Rossolini is very funny. It's like, check her out on 30 Rock. Very funny stuff. But she's gorgeous. Absolutely
amazing.
And also almost 40 in this. So she is sort of portraying that ageless quality. There's the, as I said earlier, the joke that she's 38 when she's in fact 39. So
she's offended about it.
Yeah, she's offended about it. Like, you got so close. But yeah, like everything she's in, she just plays that good like devil's bargain type of role where, you know, she's very neutral about the whole sort of thing.
Yeah, totally. She's not really a good or bad character exactly.
Yeah. She just has the power. And, you know, you go for it.
She'd have a hard time getting service at any gas station, though, because most of them have that no shirt, no service kind of policy.
That's true. She's not big on shirts. Jewelry, though.
Not
she
really
likes that.
Yeah. She makes it work.
I bet her and Linnea Quigley would be really good friends.
Oh, yeah?
Both anti-shirt.
Both very anti-shirt ladies. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, she's awesome in this. I couldn't think really of anybody who would be better cast as this mysterious, sexy, foreign, exotic woman.
Yeah, she's
with the
great.
secrets of eternal youth at her disposal.
Yeah.
And I love, too, how, like, we never really get any exposition or explanation of, like, where the youth serum is coming from, like, how it works. Like, I don't really care, honestly. Like, this is one of those movies kind of like Gremlins where there's holes in the rules, for sure.
Sure.
But it doesn't bug me. It's fine. You know, I go with it. I accept whatever they're feeding me here with it. Yeah, you take it. It keeps you young. Whatever.
Yeah, I like the mystery of it. I mean, you know, we see all the different movie stars and stuff at the party. It's like there's this whole deep world to this going on, but you know, we don't know about it. But yeah, you're right. It's you know, there's no explanation. Like why is it that when you put a little bit of the elixir straight into your blood on your hand, it just changes your hand? Like, why wouldn't it go throughout your entire blood system? Like,
yeah, it doesn't matter. Who cares?
None of that really matters, because it's just like it presents you with this interesting world, makes you think like, oh, well, what's going on there, but never gives you enough to make it boring, because that's how you make something boring, is you take away the mystery. So it never gives you enough to make you go like, oh, okay, well, I don't care.
Totally.
It's always
I'm fine
just
with
dangling enough where you're like, oh, okay, oh, all right, all right. I know that doesn't make sense, but okay.
Yeah, and of course that youth elixir that is kind of, you know, the main quest, I guess you could say, in this movie that these women are pursuing. I think that in itself is a really interesting facet, because, you know, they're both chasing after this guy. You know, Goldie Hawn has Bruce Willis, then Meryl Streep steals him, and she wants to get him back and all this kind of shit. As we see, you know, after Meryl Streep gets Bruce Willis, they've very much fallen out of love.
Yeah. For her, it's just the chase,
Yeah, exactly. But the thing about it is, too, is I think that in Meryl Streep's character's head, he fell out of love with her because she's aging and she's not as beautiful anymore, but he never once says that. It seems like the women's obsession over their looks, you know what? It's very much like how dudes obsess about getting fucking jacked and shredded.
Yeah, and
it's to impress other guys.
Yeah,
it's not at all because chicks want that or anything. It's because they're out to impress other dudes. I get the impression that in this movie, they're out to keep each other, or rather, they're out to keep themselves as young and beautiful as they can, not to impress Bruce Willis, but to impress the other chick. Because, again, they're just obsessed with each other.
You know, I think some of that, by the way, the way that men are trying to impress other men, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the majority of compliments men get in their lives are from other men. Like, actually. And it's understandable. Women feel uncomfortable telling strange men, like, oh, you look nice today, because he may be some weirdo obsessive, and that is the invitation for him to now murder you.
Well, let's be honest, though. I mean, honestly, to most all dudes out there, if a chick pays you a compliment, you just think she's coming on to you and not just being a good person.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just
exactly.
Most dudes.
Yeah, so I understand. So most men are getting most of their compliments from other men. I know for sure I've gotten more compliments about the way I'm dressed from men than women. And I realized whenever I think we did the American Psycho episode and I was talking about fashion, I realized that, like, I don't think women pay any bit of attention to the things that men think are important in fashion. Like, I don't think women are noticing these things at all. It's just us. Yeah. We're the only ones paying attention. Like, I've heard people, guys say, like, guys will get a motorcycle to impress chicks. More men will talk to you about your motorcycle than women ever will. Like,
oh, dude, I mean, you're talking to a guy that like fucking plays guitar for a living.
Yes, exactly.
How many chicks do you think swoon over me after shows versus how many guys are asking me about what fucking string gauge I use?
Exactly. Yes.
Come on, dude.
Exactly. Yeah. So I see that. I think you're right, probably there.
Yeah. I think that's just one of those things in this movie that I don't think I really understood the first time that I watched it, is that their pursuit of beauty is just to impress each other.
Yeah.
But that's also, too, I think, tying into that Beverly Hills Hollywood narrative. Because the thing is, I don't know, man. I think that things have changed a little bit in that we do have people that are getting up in their years that are still being, famous movie stars and getting all these big roles and stuff like that. Whereas probably back in the days of, old Hollywood, even, let's be honest, before plastic surgery and stuff like this, where you kind of got put out to pasture after you were too old to be pretty anymore by normal standards.
Yeah, this is definitely based somewhat on Sunset Boulevard, which is basically based on that. And then also the musical that Madeline's doing in the beginning, Songbird! Is an adaptation of Tennessee Williams' Sweet Bird of Youth, which is about an aging actress pining for her youth.
Yeah, that was totally over my head, because whenever the movie started on this like supposedly horrible musical, I just thought that was some shit that they made up for the movie. But yeah, reading some trivia, I guess that was based on, like you said, an actual play that they turned into a musical for this movie. But that was way over my head. I didn't get that.
Yeah. There are a few just different references to other things, though, that like definitely are implying the overall idea that this is an actress who's past her prime. These are women who are supposedly past their prime, and they're trying to cling to youth. So the movie is, it's just constantly reinforcing its message of like, this is ridiculous. Look how absurd. Look at what levels people will go to try to just cling on to that last strap of youth, like just a little bit. Like, and there's no reason for it. They're obsessing over it to try to keep up with the other people around them. Like, everybody's aging.
Well, it seems like they're just trying to keep up with each other more than anything.
Right,
and it's made even more silly by the fact that Goldie Hawn and Meryl Streep in this are still gorgeous as shit,
Yeah.
That's the thing that I thought was really great about this too, is like some of that special effects makeup is so subtle and so not over the top. Like whenever Meryl Streep drives to, Isabella's mansion, and she shows up and like, she's got like bags under her eyes and stuff like this. She looks like a normal person. She's just like a human
someone
being.
Who was just out in the rain. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when she takes the serum and she kind of like reinvigorates herself, and like her like butt pumps up and all this kind of stuff, and you see her face change, it makes you realize like what you were perceiving as like, oh, she just looks like a normal everyday person. That was special effects makeup, actually. It's so subtly done. Like, she doesn't look like the fucking old king in the Two Towers. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's just these very subtle, that's what I'm saying, like just a little bit of makeup, just a little subtle hint. But yeah, then when you see, they take the makeup off and it's just Meryl Streep, it's like, oh, okay. She looks great. Good job. But she doesn't look like suddenly 20.
Right. It's subtle.
Yeah, it's just very subtle changes. I like that because it keeps it keeps the audience reminded that she's freaking out over barely anything. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. Yeah, I love too that they brought in all those like cameos of, we had like Elvis in there, we had Marilyn Monroe, and what's his name? Artist. He does art things. Andy Warhol.
Andy Warhol. I was quizzing you. I was just making sure that you knew, famous artists and stuff like that. I'm the one with an art degree. I was just checking to see if you could keep up with me and stuff. I like all those things because, like I said, that was the age where, like I said, stars would reach a certain age and just vanish. We never got to see them get old. You know?
Yeah.
Or they'd, live short and leave a beautiful corpse like James Dean, who's also in this.
Yeah, James Dean, Jim Morrison. Yeah, just all these people who died young. It seems like something that looks more glamorous than it is. Like the fact that we'll never see James Dean as an old feeble man doesn't improve his life at all. Like like people who think like, well, I want to die young to leave a beautiful corpse. It's like, well, yeah, but then that's it. You're dead. Like there's nothing more to it. So you just wasted a life to look good when you died. Why? I guarantee he didn't look good, by the way. He was in a car crash.
Yeah, probably not good, right? There's also another cameo in here by somebody I didn't recognize because they weren't getting hit in the face by a goose.
Oh, Fabio. Oh, poor
Fucking
Fabio.
Fabio is in this, dude.
I feel bad about that, actually. That's exact. I was going to say something about that. That poor Fabio. Look, the man was just incredulous about a non-butter product. And then I
can't believe it's not butter.
If you heard of anybody getting like on a roller coaster headbutting a goose, you'd be like, oh my God, are they okay? But it was Fabio, so everybody was like, what?
What? That's fucking funny. That's true.
It's just like a shock, though. It's like, wait, okay, Fabio, for some reason, was on a roller coaster. The man does not even believe in hydrogenated oils. I can't understand how he would get on a roller coaster. But while up there, he had an encounter with a goose. That just sounds like something you couldn't make up because nobody would believe it.
But there it is.
Yeah.
So, let's go ahead and ask a question here because, obviously this is a dark comedy, as we've been talking about. There's this love triangle element and stuff. But is this a horror movie? And are they zombies?
Well, they are definitely zombies.
Right?
They're living dead. They're zombies. And in that way, it is using the living dead zombie thing, much like Romero used it, to try to make this societal point about this horrible culture among the rich and famous and, spread out into the rest of the world of this constant need for youth and never aging and basically leaving a beautiful corpse. So they are zombies, which I can't think of a movie with zombies that does not have the label horror on it.
Yeah.
So it's got that. It also has a witch who makes zombies. Can't think of a movie with a witch who makes zombies that is not a horror movie. So it has to fit into the horror genre, but it is a comedy.
Well, here's the thing, though, is like if that's your definition that a person who is dead but living is a zombie, that would make vampires an offshoot of zombie. Because they are also dead but living.
Yeah, well, there's a difference slightly, but yes. I mean, the idea of the vampire does come after the idea of the undead in general. The zombie label, though, wouldn't be applied until George Romero basically was like, oh, I like what you did with those Haitian zombies. Let's make them just, regular old undead. So they all kind of fit together, but the label undead works best here, I guess, rather than saying zombie. But it is the closest. It is the closest thing because, but they're not. They don't desire to eat human flesh or anything.
I was gonna say that's the area where things get kind of gray for me. Is like zombie. Undead person who has only the animal-like lizard brain characteristics that
they've retained their
life.
entire brain, but their body is decaying. Yeah.
Whereas a vampire is someone who remains immortally young, but also feeds off of human life essence.
Right.
In a way, they're more like vampires because they preserve their personality and humanity, but they're not really like a vampire or a zombie in that they do not consume other living humans to sustain themselves. So it's kind of it's kind of an unusual class. It's like, is an immortal of any kind a type of zombie? No, because they're alive, I guess.
Yeah. If you haven't died, then no. Yeah, you have to have died and come back to life. Or in this case, well, yeah,
they never die though. Is the thing.
They do go through death though. Their bodies do die.
And their heartbeats have stopped.
Yeah,
stuff.
because they had heartbeats before. They weren't dead when they consumed the potion. So the potion made it so that their heartbeat can stop, but their brain continues to go. Yeah. So, and it's something and again, is slowing the decay as well. I mean, even though they are decaying, that it is it's in 2029 in the end. So they would have completely rotted long before if they were decaying normally.
See, that's what I wondered about as far as like the mechanics of how this potion works and stuff. Right. It's like, we find out that Rossolini is 70, but the thing is like, do you still live a normal life expectancy except that your body doesn't show your age? Like,
she said
would you naturally live to 90 and then just drop dead of old age, but you'll still look young and beautiful?
Well, she said to take care of your body, so I'm guessing there's still possibility of dying of certain things. But if it rejuvenates your skin, I'm assuming it rejuvenates your veins and organs and things, which would mean that the only way to die would be, to fall down the stairs or whatever, any of these other ways of dying, but maybe not disease. I don't know.
That's the thing, man, is like at the end of the movie, they live through the cardinal zombie destruction law. They are decapitated and they're still alive.
Yeah, but I mean, the return of the living dead zombies, they could still live while decapitated. Okay. So touché. Some zombies have been that way. Yeah. I mean, I think what it is, David Koepp said that it was meant to be Night of the Living Dead if George Cukor directed it. George Cukor directed My Fair Lady. But was also a director from the 30s through the 40s, and directed a lot of those sort of like comedies throughout the time. He directed the second A Star Is Born, the one in 1954. So basically it would have been what they were looking for is Night of the Living Dead with that sort of sharp wit of 40s comedies. And right. I think they got that. But so they were definitely going for a zombie vibe, but I think you're right. This doesn't fit any sort of definition of zombie I've ever seen. It's still undead. It is closer to vampire. I would like to maybe look more into that in the future. I'll keep this. Actually, I'll write this down to just see if there's
kind of a different offshoot,
like a miscellaneous category of undead. Just like
because it's like in a way
undead.
RoboCop is undead, right?
Yeah, RoboCop is. Yeah, because he is still they've suppressed his memories, but his memories are still there.
Yeah. Huh. And I love too in that scene, like speaking of them dying and stuff, after Meryl Streep's character dies and they take her to the doctor, and the doctor is played by what's his name?
Sidney Pollack, yeah.
Yeah, Sidney Pollack. I totally didn't realize it was him while I was watching the movie, and I was reading the credits, and I was like, wait, that was Sidney Pollack?
Yeah, Sidney Pollack. Fucking Sidney Pollack, yeah.
The way that he's, like, bending her wrist backwards is like, does this hurt?
Yeah.
Is hilarious and so subtle. And then I love the fact that, like, after he takes her pulse and she's fucking dead, he runs away. Bruce Willis freaks out, and he's like, we need to find you a doctor, and he goes running through the hospital. Meanwhile, he's had a heart attack and is dying.
It's a vaudeville routine. It is insane. I love it.
Yeah.
Just like
it's very silly.
Yeah, and Meryl Streep's perfect in it. Like she's just playing they're both playing it so straight, but the doctor's just slowly getting more concerned. Yeah, I love the way that plays out.
Yeah, it's perfect, man. It's so funny. And, of course, all these deaths and dismemberments and stuff like that are shown to us in the form of some special effects and stuff that, dude, I have to say, hold up really fucking well.
I mean, it's
kind of crazy.
This is Industrial Light and Magic working on a small scale to see if it would work on a bigger scale. So they're putting all of their effort into these very small scale things. And yeah, looking at it now, almost 30 years later, it's like, that's 1992? Like that, you see why it won the Academy Award that year for special effect.
Yeah, yeah. And they did kind of a little bit of everything here. Like there's some CGI, obviously. Mm-hmm. There's some green screen stuff. Yeah. There's some animatronics. Well,
apparently some of the shots were like screen stuff. This was before they even did green screen. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks, nerd. All right. Well, actually,
they didn't start doing green screen until later with the Star Wars.
But like apparently even some of those scenes where like Meryl Streep's head is on backwards and shit like this, some of that is like animatronic.
Yeah, they had animatronic models.
Crazy.
It's crazy.
It's really hard to tell where like the live action or blue screen ends and the animatronic or CG begins. It's
all
very
pretty
hard
seamless.
To tell.
Yeah. They did a great job of putting it all together. You can tell a good bit of it is sort of CG because it's, still visible. It's 1992. You can look at it and see it. But I think they did it so well, and they wasn't over ambitious. Like they were going for kind of small things, like a hole in the body. Like if she's standing still, can we just put a blue spot there and put a hole in her body? Yes, we can.
Show the background through it.
Yeah. Perfect. Like
and I love how they play with that too. Like whenever, she like sits down on that couch and that broken off broom handle, shovel handle or whatever, like goes through her.
Yeah.
So good.
It's awesome. Yeah. I think it looks great. It's, it's probably where most of that budget went, I would say, because like
I should think
most of the stuff is all done on sets. You got the four main names, but everybody else kind of smaller roles. So like, yeah, I'd say most of it goes into the CG. So they, I think what happened maybe because like we just talked about Terminator from 1984, and while we were talking about it, we both had rewatched T2. I think in this period of the late 80s, early 90s CGI attempts, I think maybe they weren't pushing it to the point that late 90s, early 2000s did. Like maybe it was just like seen as, well, use it sparingly. And because they used it sparingly and didn't push it too far, it still looks good. But then, you get into the late 90s, and especially when the software and stuff started getting cheaper and more accessible, everybody's using it and they're not using that restraint. And it's like, oh, okay, everything's rubbery and shitty looking and will look bad in a year.
Yeah.
So, but using restraint makes it hold up.
Yeah, totally, man. And dude, I can't even imagine. This is one of those things that like I've grown to appreciate, as I have edited my own videos and stuff like that for years now. Like the first video that I ever edited was on my HP laptop around 10 years ago using like Windows Movie Maker, right?
Oh man.
And it was a fucking pain in the dick. It was the most unusable, disorganized piece of shit program ever. What was doing CGI like in 1992 on a computer that could like maybe run Ozark Trail? Like, what the fuck? How hard was that?
I cannot imagine.
No, man.
Though, I mean, and ILM this is where like a lot of the programs and stuff were being written. Like they would come up with the idea and then be like, okay, how could we do that? Like, how could we make a computer do that?
Yeah, no, I don't understand. I don't understand how they got around the limitations. Because even too, like, there's certain shots in this that obviously are like enhanced by CG, but there's some that are 100% CG. Like the scene where after Meryl Streep falls down the stairs and she's just in a crumpled heap, and we get Bruce Willis in the foreground making the phone call for the hospital and stuff, right?
Right.
And we see her like corpse reanimating and kind of like setting itself up out of focus in the background. That's all CG.
I I didn't notice.
And it's so convincing. Like, again, you didn't notice. That's how you know it was good. Like, good special effects hide in plain sight, and that's one of them. And honestly, if you sit down and think about it, you're like, yeah, how else would they have made this crumpled heap in the background reanimate itself and pop itself back into place and walk into frame? Only CGI can do that. And they did it in 92. Again, it's out of focus and stuff, but it looks like how a real out of focus figure in the background of a shot would look. It's extremely convincing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you know, it's easy to shit on CGI because, you know, it's new.
A lot of times it's just lazy, man.
Sometimes it's lazy. Sometimes it's bad. But there are real artists out there making great computer stuff. Like, I mean, most of the MCU is a huge amount of green screen and computer generated like stuff. So we've gotten to a point now where we can make these great epic movies because so many people made shit movies along the way that were really just pressing the limits of the technology that they had because they wanted to show that we could get there. So, you know, maybe a bad idea to be mad at CG, but there are definitely reasons, you know, to be like, this is obviously them taking the easy route and not caring about the movie or whatever. But when you see stuff like this, it's like, well, they obviously cared. They were putting a lot of effort into the CG.
And dude, this is one of those ones that I definitely remember watching that was featured on that Movie Magic show. Remember where they'd show like special effects and shit? We talked about that before.
Yes, yeah.
This is totally one of the ones I remember being on that show way back in the day. And I'll tell you too, man, all these awesome characters and special effects and stuff, I think are further brought to life by the sets and incredible set design and set decoration and stuff that we see through this movie. Dude, the level of detail is hilarious and fantastic and really just builds this world up so much. Like even in sets that are there for one scene in the movie, like whenever we see Goldie Hawn in her cat lady apartment, like that's really the only time we see that set.
Yeah.
But there's so much fucking detail going on. Dude, like whenever she opens up that cabinet and there's another cat frosting in the cabinet and frosting and shit, like the level of detail they went to just for stuff that most people aren't even gonna notice is hilarious.
Well, Ben, I should point out that the cinematographer Dean Cundey and production designer Rick Carter are both the cinematographer and production designer for Jurassic Park.
There you go, man.
Yeah,
tons
and Jurassic
of stuff
Park
in those shots
is full of background stuff. Yeah, so
no doubt.
Yeah, I think they did a very convincing job of fleshing out this world in the background in the production design. One of the things that was really funny to me, because I noticed the first time rewatching it that there was a lot of Frankenstein sort of elements to it, especially whenever like he repaints her and stuff. Like there's this really Frankenstein moment. But in the bit where Helen is describing the plan to kill Madeline, and it shows the folder with the case on it, and it gets just stamped case closed. On that desk, there is a human brain with a thing on it that says abnormal, which is a nod to
Young Frankenstein.
So
Abby normal. So good. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, so again, as you were saying, the production design just really deep and like really trying to make these nods to the inspirations for the film, which are all, again, like horror or thriller. So
yeah, man. And dude, like speaking of that plot scene that you were talking about a second ago, how ridiculously over the top is that shit? It's so funny. That's one of my favorite segments of the movie. And they're talking about like, we'll make it look like she had a little too much to drink.
Right, and there's so many bottles of vodka and stuff in there. Yeah,
everywhere. And they like soak the whole vehicle in it and shit. Like it's so over the top. Like it kind of reminds me of the sequences in like Emperor's New Groove where they're talking about, and then I'll smash him with a hammer, like all those plot scenes in that. It feels, again, very cartoony, very Looney Tunes to me, the way that they frame that, but it's dark and fucked up. I even like, too, how much time they spent on the psych ward that Goldie Hawn is in, whenever she's like, in the psych ward towards the first of the movie. It looks apparently exactly like the set of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I love too that like she's there with the fellow patients and the person leading like the therapy session who are what?
I was going to say who are looking very nervous, and I was like, that's a weird way for them to portray it. But they're actually nervous about what she's going to say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the same thing. I love that it shows us that like Goldie Hawn is driving the people in the nut house insane.
Yeah, with her
That's
obsession.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So
also,
good.
Kitty Foreman is in there. The mom from that '70s show is one of the patients.
No way.
Yeah. I didn't. I wouldn't have noticed except for looking through the IMDb. I was like, Kitty Foreman? What?
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like the depth of the production design really just sells the world for sure. I also think that like the comedy, like as I said, it's vaudevillian at times, or very much reminds me of like 30s and 40s sort of comedies. One of the things that I think is probably one of the funniest moments is after Madeline drinks the potion, Isabella Rossolini goes, "Now a warning," and she goes, "Now a warning?
Now?"
Like, what? You just had me drink this shit.
Yeah. And there's a lot of comedy too that's really subtle, where you only think about it afterwards. Where you're like, wait. Okay, like for example, whenever she's driving, I think it's when she's driving to Isabella's mansion there, she looks at herself in the rearview mirror and is just dismayed about like how, she's got bags under her eyes and shit like this, right? That's when she almost causes that car crash.
Uh-huh.
So she puts on sunglasses as she is driving at night in the rain.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like an overtly made joke where it's just like, oh, do you see what she did there? But you think back on it and you're like...
Yeah, like you would have somebody in the passenger side just be like, you shouldn't put on those sunglasses. It's dark.
Yeah, but you think back on it and you're like, she was so freaked out about the fact that she looked bad that she put on sunglasses driving by herself in a car at night during a rainstorm.
Yeah.
Subtle shit like that. Yeah, it's so funny, man.
It is really funny. I did have a question about one line. When she's at the plastic surgeon and she's talking about the, I guess, nurse or whatever who's telling her she can't get whatever procedure she was wanting.
Yeah.
She said, I used to look like you. And she lists off a few things, and then she says, tits like rocks. What?
Yeah.
Is this like
rocks.
Is this like 40-year-old virgin? Like a bag of, like
it's like a bag of sand.
Yeah, like where David Kep and Martin Donovan, like, yeah, we both know what boobs feel like, right? And
rocks.
Yeah,
like
rocks.
Boulders.
Yeah. One of them said rocks and the other one agreed.
They just went with it.
Yeah, rocks. Yeah, that's a good thing when a boob feels like rocks. What?
That's a good question. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of just subtle, very dry, very dark humor in this that you kind of don't even get until you think back on it and think about how irrational or how silly those decisions are. Now, Steve, let me ask you a question here, because some of the bad reviews that I read about this movie center on the idea that, and this, I mean, you can't say this isn't true to a point. A bunch of guys got together and wrote a movie about how vain women are. What do you think about that?
I mean, that is... I'm not going to invalidate the reading by saying that it's a weak reading. I think I
can see how some people might see that.
I can see how you might see that, but I think you would have to intentionally ignore a lot of what's going on. That being that both of the women are in power. That they don't need the token they're fighting over, and that they're focused on each other.
Okay, touche. That's fair.
I don't think that it is about them representing all women. I think that is, in fact, like I said when we talked about Friday the 13th Part 5, where people see that scene where the two guys are like in the car on the side of the road broke down. They see it as maybe they're a gay couple, and it's like, well, it's just two guys in a scene. Like, that's the only reason why you're thinking this. The only reason why somebody might think that these two women have to represent all women is because they're women. Like, women are held to this, like, whenever they're portrayed as like a character in a movie or whatever, they're held as somehow responsible for all women. It even happens with, say, like, oh, let's talk about wet ass P word, Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. Like, when they put out this song, it's like you see people being like, well, they shouldn't be like that. Women are supposed to be good examples to little girls or whatever. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Why do women suddenly have to be examples? Why is every woman an example of all women? Why can't these two female characters just hate each other and not be a representation of every single woman in the world?
Yeah, exactly. Like, maybe this is just a story about two people that are very superficial and vain. That doesn't mean that is every fucking woman on Earth. Yeah,
because if we're saying then that they represent every woman on Earth, then we have to say the male character represents every man on Earth, which means this movie is saying men are weak and ineffectual and won't take responsibility for their own actions.
And have Bloody Marys and aspirin for breakfast every morning.
Yeah, so it in no way would then be denigrating women any more than it's denigrating men. So then the satire would still work just fine. I don't think that reading works. I think it's maybe when you're a critic, especially in the 90s, when you know you're not going to get to rewatch this movie or whatever, you watch it the first time and you go, I think it was probably denigrating women. I'll just write about that. Like,
but that falls apart too when you factor in that it's not just women that take the potion.
Right? Yeah, because there's like 3 or 4 movie star men there: Elvis Presley, Jim Morrison, Andy Warhol. Like, they all, James Dean, they all took it. They're all trying to preserve their youth. Like, it's definitely not saying only women are doing this. I think it's more about the Beverly Hills lifestyle than the female Beverly Hills lifestyle. It's very much focused on this is the type of greed and jealousy and anger and hatred for each other, and also, pure connection that these people all have because they all live this very particular life that no one else can connect to, so they have to be friends with each other even though they hate each other. Like, those are at the center of this far more than women bad.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's like you said, it's like, it's easy to see where people get that interpretation, but
sure,
that's not really what I get out of it either,
Yeah, and I think now more than ever, looking back on it 30 years later and still being able to see, like, oh, these are two strong women who this passes the Bechdel test. They talk about more than a man. And in fact, their fight has little to do with the man after a while. He is very much just not even involved, except as a pawn that they're both trying to play with.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, man. And, the last thing I want to point out that I think is really fantastic in this is the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack definitely has a good heavy dash of Danny Elfman to it. There's a lot of that kind of spooky, gothic, modern thing that he does.
Yeah, it's Alan Silvestri.
It suits the movie.
So. Yeah, it does. It suits the movie. He's definitely, I think you're right, he's going for Danny Elfman a little bit, but it also does have the Silvestri feel to it, I think. I mean, it's no Forrest Gump, but it's good. It definitely fits really well with the movie.
Yeah, I think so too, man. Do you have anything else overall that you'd like to kind of point out about this flick?
No, not really. I think we've said the big major elements. I mean, this movie I loved as a kid, and I had watched it semi recently with Emily and had loved it again. So coming into this, I was pretty sure I was going to love this movie and was a little worried that looking at it with a critical eye, I was going to be like, oh, fuck, it's not as good as I remember. It is. It's still awesome.
What would you put this thing on that old rating scale that we got?
Oh, man. If I had to slap a rating on this, man, I mean, it's, as far as horror, it's not, it just fits with thematic elements of horror. It's not a scary movie. It's not intentionally trying to titillate in any of those ways, but it's playing with all those things, and it does it in a really good way. It doesn't get caught up in satirizing the tropes of horror movies, which a lot of horror comedies do, which is fun and funny. But it's nice when you get a horror comedy that's just original and interesting. So I love this movie. I think, I wouldn't change anything about it, but that's because I have so much nostalgia for it. But I would understand if maybe, like you said, there's some shifts in tone and, the perspective in the third act and stuff. And yeah, it's not a perfect movie, but I love it. So I'm gonna give this an 8 for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I side with that.
8.
I side with that, man. It's in that zone where it's like, in terms of a horror comedy, I'm not gonna say it's up there with like Shaun of the Dead or something like that,
which is
like,
much
that's kind
more
of the
horror. Yeah.
Yeah, and at the same time, like a lot more laugh out loud,
right?
Comedic. This is a lot more dark, a lot more subtle. It's kind of like if the Addams Family wasn't made for families, like a family audience, you know? Because Addams Family, like we talked about on our review of that last October, like that really treads a fine line where it's morbid and stuff, but it never gets too fucked up. Like, this gets pretty fucked up in a lot of ways.
Very,
especially like when you just sit back and think about what happened in that scene or whatever. But it's not overt, really, in the horror aspects or the comedic aspects or anything. But, dude, just the set design, the soundtrack, everything, I think is fantastic. And it is also, like we said, unbelievable that they pulled off these special effects in 1992. I think that the first act of this movie is on, like, nitrous oxide. The first act of this movie
he goes so fast.
Fast. It's,
but
it's
it
like,
works effectively.
It does, but it's like within 15 minutes you travel 14 years. 7 years later, 7 years later, and then the movie starts essentially. It's one of those that like the pacing is a little uneven in some ways, but the characters and the performances and stuff are so worthwhile that it keeps me focused. I think that if this movie had lesser actors and actresses in it, it really would have suffered from that uneven pace and somewhat uneven narrative a little bit more. But considering you got people that are just really, really selling these roles to you, for me anyway, it really kept me on deck. So I think I'm right there with you, man. I think around like probably a 7.5 is where I would put this movie. It's not perfect, but I will gladly rewatch this many times for sure, especially with people who've never seen it before, Now, we did this movie at the request of Kate for her birthday. We didn't plan it perfectly. At the time of this recording. Yeah, we didn't plan it perfectly, but still, birthday present for Kate. Do we know what Kate's rating is on it? Well, Steve, it just so happens that I have Birthday Girl right here in the APT, so she's going to dump her rating on you right now.
Do it.
So I grew up with this movie, saw it a bunch, rented it on VHS, watched it on TV. So it has a lot of sentimental value for me. I'd probably put it at an 8.
That's what I said.
Now, maybe less, but I love it so much, so it gets an 8 because nothing deserves a 10.
And that's the bottom line, because Stone Kate said so.
Stone Kate.
Cold as
that's
ice.
Awesome. Well, so Kate and I we all had similar scores. Ballpark Buds stole that from Doughboys.
There you go. This movie is a good. Definitely recommend. And Steve, you know what?
What
is good or maybe is not good, depending on what it is that I have or haven't seen. It's the movie that we're doing next week on the show, which is a Patreon pick.
And
which is
The Faculty.
Oh, wow. I cannot
Right?
believe
I know.
we picked that movie. Our
What?
patrons have some truly unexpected choices of movies that we love or don't.
Can you
Yeah.
believe it?
I cannot believe it. How in the world can someone get the power to get their movie covered on a future episode of Dead and Lovely?
Now,
Question mark.
I know other podcasts, you got to do things like you got to take a trip cross country. You got to find your inner worth. You got to confront your father. You got to do all these tough things before you can get involved in the podcast. Well, guess what?
Exactly.
Over here in Dead and
All
Lovely,
you got to do for us is send nudes.
send nudes to us.
That's it.
Let's
That's
see
it.
them dicks. No. Go
Let
to
me see them
Patreon.
balls, boys. Let me see them nuts.
Go to patreon.com/dead and lovely. Become a $5 patron. If you do that, you get to drop a suggestion in the bowl. Once a month, we draw randomly from that bowl and we review that movie. And it's going to be awesome or less awesome depending on the movie I just said seconds ago, moments ago.
And
minute
doctors
or
have
so.
concurred that it causes a happy to happen in the body.
That's true. Yeah, it releases, it does this thing where, you know how you'll have anxiety in your body? Well, it takes the N and the I and the T and the Y and just leaves you with an axe. So now you're a badass.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's what it does, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting. That's pretty good to know right there. It takes all your bad feelings, turns them into good feelings.
That's
So
right.
sign up today over on that Patreon page, y'all. That's right. And, of course, you guys can follow us on other social
Yeah.
medias.
At Dead Lovely Pod on Twitter and Instagram. We're also on the Discord, on the YouTubes. We're all over the place. Just holla at us at Dead Lovely Pod.
That's right. And while you're doing that, write us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you can review a podcast these days. I don't know. Can you review podcasts on TikTok? Is that a thing? Kids do that, don't they?
I think you probably could. I don't know how many up talks it would get. I don't know
that's a
what
good question.
TikTok do. Do you
I'm
up
not
talk
sure
things?
I think you up talk.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
Yeah.
She's been living in a TikTok world. That's how it goes, right? TikTok
Talk
girl. Oh my God, trademark Dead and Lovely. I'm writing this song tonight. Fuck. Yeah, I'm gonna be busy.
I was going to say that actually probably could be a really shitty Jimmy Fallon sketch. So anybody want to hire us over at Jimmy Fallon? Holla.
Trademark Dead and Lovely. Well, be sure to tune in next week for a good old fun time when we'll be talking about that movie that we just drew out of the smoking bowl. I can't even believe it. Thank you guys so much for listening. Everybody, stay home, stay safe. Fucking wear a goddamn mask. Come on, people. It's not
Yeah,
fucking hard. Wear a
Jesus.
damn mask. Look at all the hard work and killing that Michael Myers did. He was never depleted of oxygen. He never
Once.
activated his own COVID virus, and he was fucking
Yep.
busy. He had a busy night there on the streets of Haddonfield. You know, so you could fucking do it too. When you go out to go buy some damn spinach from the grocery store, what the fuck ever. Wear a fucking mask. Wash your fucking hands.
And your ass.
That thing's nasty. This is nasty.
Nasty ass.
And tune in next week for another episode of Dead Lovely with the host with the most, Uncle Ben.
Hollywood Steve.
You guys have been fantastic. We've been Drad and Langley. See you guys later. So my wife just got back from her appointment for her hair waxing and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And she had a new person that was doing the service for her there, right? She said
Okay.
she was this goth girl.
Oh, all right.
And I got to thinking about it, and I was like, this is a goth girl who made it her career choice to rip out the hairs of probably like well-kept blonde ladies and stuff and just tear their hair out all day.
Yeah.
And now I want to write a movie about her. Right?
Yeah.
And obviously it's Janine Garofalo. Obviously it's Garofalo.
Oh, duh. Yeah. But yeah, that's how she like keeps her rage down day to day.
Yep.
Is
Yep.
rich ladies come in and she rips their pubic hair off.
Exactly.
That's got. I mean, that does sound pretty cathartic.
I know, right? I think there's potential there. Trademark Dead and Lovely.
Yeah.